In 1933, a decorated Marine Corps general walked into Congress with an unbelievable claim. He said wealthy businessmen had approached him with a plan to overthrow the President of the United States, and they wanted him to lead it. When Franklin D. Roosevelt took office in 1933, the United States was in the middle of the worst economic collapse in its history. Banks had failed, factories were silent, millions of Americans had lost their jobs. Nearly a quarter of the workforce was unemployed. Confidence in the American system itself was beginning to fracture. The crisis was so severe that some economists feared democracy might not survive it. The Great Depression had shaken the foundations of American society. Families lost homes. Farmers lost land. Banks closed overnight, wiping out life savings. Across the country, despair was the only growth industry. In the halls of power, this desperation wasn't just a humanitarian crisis, it was a political opportunity. At the same time, radical political movements were rising across the world. Communism in the Soviet Union, fascism in Italy, Nazism in Germany. Many Americans wondered whether democracy itself could survive the economic chaos. The elite were particularly nervous. Roosevelt responded with an ambitious program of reforms known as the New Deal. The federal government began regulating banks, creating jobs programs, providing relief to struggling families. For millions, it represented hope. But for some of the most powerful figures in finance and industry, it represented something else: government oversight, new taxes, labor protections, and limits on corporate power. To these critics, Roosevelt's policies looked like a threat to the economic order. In 1934, prominent business leaders formed a political organization called the American Liberty League. Its purpose was to oppose the New Deal. The League included influential figures connected to banking, manufacturing, and finance. It promoted constitutional government. But critics argued it represented the interests of wealthy elites determined to stop Roosevelt's reforms. It was in this tense atmosphere the plot emerged. The man who brought the story forward was Major General Smedley Butler, a man of iron will and 2 Medals of Honor. Butler had served in nearly every major American military intervention of the early 20th century. He was respected and outspoken. After retiring from the Marines, Butler became increasingly critical of the influence of corporate power in American politics. In 1934, he made a claim that stunned Washington. He said wealthy businessmen had approached him with a proposal: recruit hundreds of thousands of military veterans and march on Washington. To them, he was the perfect leader. According to Butler, the proposal came from a bond salesman named Gerald McGuire. McGuire allegedly described organizing as many as 500,000 veterans. These veterans would form a powerful political movement capable of pressuring the government, a force that could not be ignored. The plan did not necessarily involve a violent coup. Instead, the goal was to pressure Roosevelt into appointing a new position. Roosevelt would remain president in name, but real authority would move to a powerful administrator who would effectively run the government. To Butler, the proposal resembled authoritarian political systems emerging in Europe. It was a corporate dictatorship in democratic clothing. Butler refused to cooperate. He was a constitutionalist at heart. Instead, he went to Congress. In November 1934, he testified before the McCormick-Dickstein Committee. Under oath, Butler described the meetings and the alleged proposal. The committee investigated his claims. Their final report acknowledged that evidence suggested discussions of such a plan had taken place. But no criminal charges followed. Many newspapers dismissed the story. Others treated it as exaggeration or a hoax. Within weeks, the alleged plot faded from national headlines, buried under the weight of the ongoing depression. Historians still debate the business plot today. Some believe Butler misunderstood the conversations he had been part of. Others believe powerful individuals were quietly testing the limits of political influence, testing the waters of treason. What remains undeniable is that Butler testified publicly and under oath, and the Congressional Committee confirmed the conversations occurred. The line between political pressure and political conspiracy can sometimes be difficult to define, especially when wealth is involved. The business plot may never be fully understood, but it remains one of the most unusual episodes in American political history, a moment when the possibility of a corporate-backed coup briefly entered the conversation. It quietly disappeared, but it left behind a haunting question. How much of our history is defined by the plans that were never allowed to come to light? History often remembers the events that succeed. But sometimes the most revealing stories are the plans that fail, the footnotes that remind us how fragile democracy truly is, and how easily it could have been different. Next time on the Footnote Files, in the early morning hours of November 29, 1988, firefighters in Kansas City responded to what looked like a routine construction site fire. Minutes later, the ground beneath them exploded. 6 firefighters were killed instantly. 5 men were arrested and sent to prison. But decades later, investigators began asking a disturbing question. What if those men were innocent? What if the real arsonists were never caught? And what if the truth about the deadliest day in Kansas City Fire Department history was buried for decades? That story is called 6 Firefighters Died. The Wrong Men Went to Prison. We uncover the evidence they ignored. Some stories survive. Others are buried in the footnotes. I'm Sarah A. Morris, and I'll see you in the next investigation. Thank you for venturing into the archives with me. Remember to subscribe for the stories they didn't teach you in school. The hidden history is waiting to be uncovered. Stay curious, stay investigative, and always look for the footnotes. Good night.